Today, I'm here with Wendy Dickinson. She is a business coach, and we're going to talk about businesses and what it takes to sell one. And thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me, Ron. I'm really excited to be here. This is a topic that I am very passionate about. So I'm glad to have the opportunity and welcome any questions or contact from your listeners.
Let's just do this. Just the way we do on all these shows. I always jokingly say, you were born and now you ended up on a show about mergers and acquisitions. Can you fill out the gap in between? We don't have to start off with I was a baby, but could you give us how did you end up in the mergers and acquisitions space? And let's look at your origin story.
Sure. And I have to tell you, that would be a lot to fill in if I went from day one to today. However, there are a couple of things that contributed to being here now. First of all, my dad was an iron worker. He was a high rise steel worker and found when, after he had four kids, that he was spending more time on strike than he was actually spending working. So he was one of those guys that could do just about anything. If he wanted to build something, he figured it out, he made it happen. So when that in his ironwork career, when he reached that point where he was seriously financially strapped with being on strike so much, he started his own construction company. It was a lot of fun for him. He was one of those people that was a natural leader. He enjoyed people, enjoyed being around the guys that he worked with and for. And the problem was he really didn't have anybody in his life, Ron, that had ever had their own business. And he didn't know what he didn't know. It was one of those situations that unfortunately came back to bite him in the rear end. So then, fast forward, I trained to become a therapist. I really enjoyed the work, loved the people, and was in an interesting area because at the time there weren't a lot of therapists in private practice. So I worked for a community organization and we had the opportunity to see people from across the spectrum as far as socioeconomic groups were concerned. And then my husband and I, with another couple, had the opportunity to start a company. And they had the idea, we had some capital. And so we pulled all of our resources. And from day one, I mean, the first moment, Ron, we sat down at that kitchen table and said we wanted to do this, we knew that we wanted to grow the business to sell it.
I don't think most of the time that businesses end up selling to their desired acquirer. So you did a good job. You really built something they wanted.
Yeah, and I agree with you that a lot of people don't do that. And then, second of all, the chances of actually selling to the target acquirer are pretty low. But overall, at least here in Virginia, it's the statistics for businesses that go up for sale, only about 18% actually succeed. And from there, you've got about another 20 that might be considered successful. So I feel like those stats and others really contribute to making the case for figure out who would be the perfect buyer. Would it be a private equity investor? Would it be someone else, a competitor perhaps? Would it be someone who is has a particular area of knowledge or passion for what your business happens to be? But whatever that is, create as many scenarios as you can so that your business will appeal to as many buyers as possible. So, if, for example, you know that your business, because you have the data, not because it's just something, an idea that you have in your head, but if you know that your quote unquote slow time is July and August, well, and you're outgrowing growing your space, then maybe it makes sense to move in July and August. So it's interesting. I had a client who was really interested in trying to grow their business to increase revenue. And the client told me when this person felt like the highs and lows of the business are throughout a calendar year. Okay, so she began to design this entire calendar of events and things that she was going to do based on what she had said to me. And then, as part of the growth, she hired someone who was able to assemble her data. We took a look at the data, analyzed it. And I got to tell you, Ron, she managed to hit one high in the business cycle correctly in a calendar year. All the rest, she was off about a month, which meant that entire calendar of events that she had designed for the upcoming year was off.
And I quit asking business owners about cash flow analysis because most of them didn't even know what it was. Even their CPAs, to be honest, I had a lot of CPAs were like, "Oh, just ask my CPA for everything you need." And once I started talking to him, like, "Oh, do you have a cash flow analysis?" They're like, "What exactly are you looking for?" "I'm looking for the cyclical of cash flow of your business. I want to know
Right.
when the highs and lows are." In all honesty, I kind of want to see how they manage their inventory based on how they manage their cash flow. Different things inside of the data. And that's just me being a nerd to some extent, but
I think that's you doing your due diligence,
well, a
frankly.
lot of businesses just don't have it. You
Yeah.
can build it from their data. We ask for bank statements and other stuff. You can build it. You can build your own. Just it's not easy because it's not yours. So you're missing things. I don't think I've seen, and we evaluated a lot because I was in part of a big roll up.
Yeah. And that goes back to looking at when to sell, right? When does it make sense to sell your company? And I have to encourage your listeners to understand that it's not like a real estate closing where you put your house on the market and in a hot market, you've got 5 offers in 12 hours and you're going to decide who you're going to choose the next day. And then bam,
Hmm.
it's done. I really liken it instead of a race, it's more like a marathon. And it's incredibly important that you put certain things in place, that your people are up to speed, that everybody knows in what direction and at what pace they need to be making decisions and moving so that the owner can focus on whatever is involved in the transaction.
A lot of small business owners just they don't qualify for that amount of attention because it's time consuming. And to be honest, I don't know if you want it. If you're a small business owner, it's a lot of work to have that. I mean, you really have to have your ducks in a row when 5 people are evaluating because they're gonna beat you up if one thing's out of whack.
Well, I tell you the truth, I think that in most cases, people can benefit from having a business broker if they're in the small scale. Just because the business broker handles the tire kickers, you don't get people who are wasting your time. You don't get people who will never in a million years line up the financing to buy the business anyway. And so I think the business broker has the best opportunity to at least get you more than one buyer. And again, I'm just shocked by the number of people who decide that they're going to DIY that whole process.
Mhm.
And it is a specialization. It is something that people train to do. It is something that you as a business owner don't know what you don't know.